Wow, this is nuts, right? So much feels out of control right now. We are truly experiencing something that, for those of us in the US for sure, and certainly for many of us around the world, is absolutely unprecedented. So while we adjust to this new life, here's what I know. We will adjust. By the end of this week, we'll fall into our new normal. And I know that each of you is an absolute warrior. This too shall pass. Could I throw another cliche in here? And I know that you will thrive. We will do this together, even while physically separated. So here at Salad with a Side of Fries, we're keeping things business as usual as much as possible. Today's episode is going on as planned. We can record remotely, and we will be here through all of this. And as I'm adapting, you get more chances to learn and spend time with me. Aren't you lucky? So this Thursday, March 19th, we had a wellness event planned in New York City. So now it's going to be a webinar, which means you can join us from the comfort of your home, wherever you live. The theme of that one is biohacking the gut-brain connection. And that's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, March 19th. Then next week on Wednesday, March 25th, you can join meditation coach Nandar Matari and I for a webinar at 2 p.m. Eastern talking about boosting your immune system, mind, and body. And of course, our members have a live Q&A coming up on March 25th as well. I will post links on social to register for this Thursday's Biohacking the Gut-Brain Connection webinar and next week's Boosting Your Immune System, Mind, and Body webinar. For access to the live Q&A, be sure to join our membership program and keep your eyes peeled as we have more in the works. So hang in there, friends. We are in this together. Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey all, welcome back to another episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. This is it, the part you've been waiting for, part 3 of our 3-part series called A Calorie is Not A Calorie. Let's start today with a message from our partner for this episode, Snap Cleaning Products. Make household cleaning a snap with their eco-friendly, economical, multi-purpose Snap products. Snap's concentrated multi-purpose formulas perform light to industrial strength jobs all in one bottle, saving you time and money. Snap products were developed with the environment in mind using plant-based ingredients that are biodegradable, phosphate-free, non-toxic, and bottled in recyclable containers. Get more for your money with Snap. Snap products give you the cleaning power of a variety of cleaners, saving you time, money, and valuable storage space. It seems to me like everyone right now is talking about contagious viruses going around. Right? So to combat this, I rely on the Snap 2 Cleaner Disinfectant. Its phosphate-free formula is designed to provide effective cleaning, deodorization, and disinfection specifically for hospitals, nursing homes, schools, food processing plants, food service establishments, transportation terminals, office buildings, basically industrial strength and household strength. So it's actually Snap 2 Cleaner Disinfectant is EPA registered, basically good enough for hospitals and nursing homes, which means it's good enough for me. So live your life to the fullest without fear that these viruses are going to fester in your home with the Snap 2 Cleaner Disinfectant. So to get 10% off your order, text the word CLEAN, CLEAN, to 844-947-4846, and you'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word CLEAN to 844-947-4846. Standard text and data rates may apply. You tried the...
I did.
Mm-hmm. The
detergent?
The detergent. Mm-hmm. Yeah, by the way, Lauren's back, everybody.
Hey.
So you tried the detergent.
I did.
You like it?
Yeah.
And
my skin's pretty sensitive, and I've had reactions to other detergents, and I have not to this one, which is awesome. I was also going to comment when you were talking about the cleaners that it sounds like the what the ingredients are,
Yeah.
they're, as we discussed in part 2, it's less toxic than a diet soda.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend drinking it, but probably
But it might be
not
safer.
as bad.
Might be safer to drink it than an overheated bottle of soda.
Right. Which, thank you for bringing up part 2. So well, quick recap. So part 2 was sugar. Part 1 was grains. And now we're on part 3, which is fat. And fat for so many people is like this ugly, dirty word, right? And I think that's partly because of the 90s, like fat-free fad diet. Say that 10 times fast, by the way.
I was going to try, but.
Yeah. So again, if you guys recall from part 2, I kept calling these like my soapbox issues of like what's allowed to be in our food. But I actually think similar to that, like that whole conversation, I think the fat-free movement was paid for by the sugar lobby, because when they took out all the fat, they added a ton of sugar.
Right.
Right. So off my soapbox, but just saying. So today I want to set the record straight on fat, to say fat is not the enemy. Right?
Yeah.
Let's just take it in for a second. Fat is not the enemy. And eating fat is probably not the biggest culprit of what adds fat to your body. Okay. Little counterintuitive, but it's true. Which also reminds me, before I forget, reminding everybody to stick with us to the end of our episode for our newest segment, Nutrition Nugget. You don't want to miss it. But back to fat, right? We just want to choose the healthy fats and the right fats and make sure we're getting enough.
Okay.
Because fat is actually really important in our body. And of course, in this moment, I can't remember the exact statistic, but your brain is a majority fat.
Right.
We need fat for healthy skin and hair. Fat actually insulates our body organs against shock so that, we survive as humans. Like if somebody knocked into you and there was nothing protecting your body, right? It maintains body temperature, promotes healthy cell function, energy stores for the body, and like I said before, our brain. And fat is actually required to absorb certain vitamins. In particular, vitamins A, D, E, and K are your fat-soluble vitamins. So if you don't have fat, you're not going to absorb those nutrients.
Okay.
Signs that you might not be getting enough fat in your nutrition. So we talked about it's important for your hair and your skin and your nails. So if your skin is dry and scaly, if your hair is super dry, or you're losing your hair, right? If your eyes are dry all the time, could be a function of not having enough fat in your nutrition. We talked about fat being important for maintaining body temperature. So if you're feeling cold all the time, could be that you need some more fat in your nutrition. And again, I want to clarify, fat in your nutrition does not necessarily equate to fat on the body.
Right.
Right.
I was going to ask about like cognitive functioning or memory function, what signs might be that your body is not getting enough fat with respect to the brain.
Yeah, it's going to be issues around like concentration.
Okay.
Or mental fatigue.
Okay.
Or even feeling constant overall fatigue. That could be an issue. Hormonal problems, right? Include like if you're losing your menstrual cycle, a lot of times.
Right.
That's an impact.
Which is common in anorexia.
Yeah.
When you're just generally low body weight.
Yep.
That's something that presents itself in eating disorders a lot.
Yeah. If you feel like you're always hungry or you're never satisfied or you never feel full, it could be a function of not getting enough fat. If you're deficient in vitamins A, D, E, or K, right? The fat soluble vitamins, that's a giant red flag,
Right.
right? But even still, just constant fatigue. Or another big one I see all the time is difficulty eliminating pooping.
Ah.
A lot of times things get stuck in our system if we don't have enough fat. So We need it. It's critical. A few facts around fat. Our protein choices generally have fat and protein in them. Fruits and nuts have fat, carbohydrates, and some protein. Mm-hmm. Nuts, obviously, more protein than some of our fruits, but it has all of those things in them. 95% of the fat in foods is triglycerides, which are made in animal or plant tissue, mainly from carbohydrates. Now, fat doesn't actually mix with our stomach fluids. So little digestion of fat takes place in the stomach. It kind of rises to the top. And then the digestive system absorbs the triglycerides from a meal with up to 98% efficiency. So little fat is ever excreted in waste.
Interesting. When you said that, I had a vision of like oil and vinegar.
Right. Exactly. And I'm going to talk about salad dressings and oil and vinegar in a minute, because that brings up our members gift this week.
Ooh.
Funny you should say that. Just continue on these fat facts for a second. Fats are a great source of energy and are broken down in the body into glycerol and free fatty acids. Glycerol can be converted into glucose, harken back to part 2, right? And therefore used as a source of energy. Free fatty acids are used to dilute or attempt to maintain equilibrium when too much of a substance is in the bloodstream. And it'll do so until the offending substance is no longer in the body or the levels are more appropriate. So the substance leaves the body through excretion, urination, bloodletting, hair growth, things like that. So fat's really important.
Right.
You know, you can imagine by realizing all the functions and systems in the body. I mean, every cell has a fatty barrier around it, right? Like this mucosal barrier. So we need fat. The challenge becomes understanding the types of fat and making sure that what we're getting are the healthful kinds.
Right.
So types of fat. Let's start with saturated fat. Saturated fat is a solid at room temperature. So think about meat, dairy.
I was going to say butter.
Yeah, butter. Like, it's like if you leave a steak on the counter and it becomes room temperature, it's not like all of a sudden that veining fat is like liquid. And
it's not going to melt.
You know, right, exactly. So that's your saturated fat. The American Heart Association says limit your saturated fat to less than 7% of your total daily calories. Now, we're not really counting calories, but I think most of the foods that are high in saturated fat are also high in cholesterol. So I don't know that I necessarily agree with the direct link of saturated fat to cholesterol issues. I think that there's more a correlation of the cholesterol in foods that happen to be high in saturated fat.
Okay.
Because I think we do need a little saturated fat, but we will get that by eating foods that we normally eat anyway.
Right.
Like, you don't need to go out of your way to make sure you're getting saturated fat. Like, you're going to get it. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Unsaturated fat is liquid at room temperature.
So olive oil.
Right. Your oils, you know, even some nuts have unsaturated fat as well. It's typically found in vegetable oils like soybean, canola, olive oil. Exactly.
Right. So I didn't even make this connection until just now. But when you said some nuts have oil as well, that's why when you buy natural nut butters,
yes,
there's oil at the top.
Yes. And it's the processing
that
and actually
it.
turning, it's the lack of processing that keeps them separated. So a nut butter that has been processed, or we're going to talk about this in a second.
Like a Skippy?
Exactly. Where they have been hydrogenated, it keeps them from getting liquid and keeps it emulsified and still together.
Yeah, I love me a Skippy extra chunky. Sorry.
I know. I mean, I grew up in Jif. I still love Jif. But I will say, tangent about peanut butter. Peanut butter is one of those things where for a long time I like could not control my peanut butter consumption. Mm-hmm. And like, don't keep it in the house because it's not okay. I will say switching to natural peanut butter where the only ingredient is peanuts and maybe some salt, I can control that.
Okay. So is that because of what we talked about in part 2, because of the sugars and what you had mentioned with sort of the more you consume, the more you need to satiate that craving? Or
yeah, I think there's a lot of things. I think it's processed, which we'll talk about with trans fats, right? I think it's the sugar. I think it's chemicals added that turn off our ability to say we're satisfied. Mm-hmm. You know?
Right. Like I will not lie and say I have never sat down and eaten an entire jar of extra chunky Jif.
Yeah.
It's happened. I probably did not feel that full after doing it.
Right. You're probably like, oh, what else?
Oops.
Right.
But I have never eaten that quantity of natural peanut butter.
Yeah. No. Because
you can't.
It's right.
Right.
Okay. So breaking down unsaturated fats, there are 2 types. There is monounsaturated and polyunsaturated. Both are still liquid at room temperature. Monounsaturated begins to solidify at cold temperatures, and in studies may actually lower bad cholesterol, the LDL, and maintain good cholesterol, the HDL.
Okay.
Polyunsaturated are liquid at room temperature, found in like safflower, sesame, corn, soybeans, right? And it has been shown to reduce LDL, your bad cholesterol, but too much can also lower your good cholesterol, the HDL.
Why?
So,
are you going to tell me?
No, I wasn't.
Oh.
I don't know exactly why. And frankly, the studies don't get into why.
Okay.
I don't know. I wish I had a better answer. I don't know. The studies don't even dive into it. I don't even know. Maybe somebody out there knows this, and if you do,
right.
Send
I don't
us
even
a
have
note.
a guess.
Again, it could be one of those more of like correlation versus causation things.
Yeah, that actually does make sense. Right.
So I'm not totally sure. Then so that was all a long answer of unsaturated fat. Okay. Then there's the trans fats. Okay. And I say it that way because trans fats, for good reason, have gotten a really bad rap. Right. And they should. But also in that realm, there's a lot of misinformation around trans fats and 0 grams of trans fats and things like that. So let's talk about it for a second because frankly, a lot of us don't even know what it is. Okay, so a trans fat is created through adding hydrogen to make a fat solid at room temperature. So basically taking an unsaturated fat, pumping it with hydrogen so that it is solid at room temperature. They are very unhealthy because essentially your body is like, I don't even know what this is.
Right.
Right? And it's mostly found in processed foods because it keeps foods moist. It maintains their form. It adds to their shelf life. And essentially it has a negative impact on our health.
So this would be a preservative-ish thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. So in part 2, we talked about like, are some of these sugars or sweeteners used as preservatives? And I said probably more the fats. So the trans fats tend to act as preservatives.
Right. I would bet, although I don't have it in front of me, that there are trans fats in Ritz crackers.
Oh.
I'm only saying that because they're like a buttery cracker
They
with a
taste
long
too
shelf
good.
with a long shelf life.
Right.
So putting all that together, I'm guessing.
Right. And somebody, if you have a picture of the label handy, send us a photo.
Right.
So it's interesting because trans fats in studies have actually shown to lower your good cholesterol and contribute to heart disease and cardiovascular problems. Now, again, causation, correlation, a whole lot of things there, right? I would also argue that there's more trans fats in the foods that have more sugar. Sugar contributes to cholesterol in the body and like, right? But the bottom line is no one needs trans fats ever. They do not exist in nature. This is not something anybody needs. No one is deficient in trans fats, right? So we actually want to make sure that you're not getting any trans fats. And even if a package says 0 grams of trans fats, you have to read the ingredients. Because, so remember, this stuff used to be in all of our food, and then the FDA was like, no trans fats in anything, right? I mean, it doesn't take a genius to say all of these food companies didn't necessarily go reformulate everything.
But what was the statistic about how close to the truth, for lack of a better word, they need to be when reporting on food labels?
Basically not.
Basically not at all.
Basically not. Because it's also not enforced. But I will tell you, for something to say 0 grams of trans fats, it's 0.5 grams of trans fats per serving or less. And you can still say 0 grams of trans fats on the package. So you have to read the ingredients because, again, going back to reading labels, 0 plus 0
is 0
on a food label does not necessarily equal 0 because if you read the ingredients and it's in there. So
how would it present in the ingredient list?
Hydrogenated or hydrolyzed.
Okay.
Right? Hydrogenated, I think of it like hydrogenated.
Oh, okay.
Right? And hydrolyzed is the other word that they'll use. So read the labels of everything. You guys, your mind will be blown when you start to identify this. I've seen it in people's multivitamins. Like you think you're doing something great for yourself and you are. Like I applaud the gumption and the effort to be taking a multivitamin, but we want to make sure of what we're taking. And so we have to read the labels, like especially in kids' multivitamins. So by the way, what makes gummies gummy?
I was just going to say this. I love a gummy.
So, and especially kids, I get it. Gummy vitamins, but a lot of what makes them gummy is trans fats. No. So you got to read the ingredients and figure out what's in there. And then this brings up, which I mentioned briefly before, the whole fat-free food and low-fat food. Generally, they tend to be unhealthier choices, typically because the manufacturers are replacing fat with sugar, which raises the glycemic impact. But again, we just want to be smart consumers and know what we're buying and make sure that we're adding quality fat to our nutrition through unsaturated fats, which are the best as your olive oil, your coconut oil, your avocado oil, rapeseed oil, that kind of stuff. Okay. Inevitably, this brings up omegas and fish oils and all this kind of thing. So let's clear this up because this is one also where I love everybody's effort and I love our doctors for recommending that people take omega-3s, but there's a lot of confusion here. So clearing it up. Okay, so your omegas are a category of fats called essential fatty acids. When you see the word essential in front of anything, when it's around nutrition, like vitamins, minerals, and nutrients, it means that your body cannot make them. It means that it is essential to take it through nutrition.
Okay.
Or supplementation.
So I have to find gummies that say essential before them. Right. I'll feel better.
And then read to see if they have trans fats. Okay. So some fatty acids are essential, which means that they cannot be created by the body and they have to be consumed through food choices in small amounts. Right?
Wait, I have a question. So obviously supplementation is important on almost every level, particularly given the state of our food. However, I do feel like it's something that's available now in a way and growing, right? In a way that it wasn't always before. And this is a conversation I've had with my parents, with my grandparents. So Have people always needed to supplement omegas, I guess is the question.
So,
and if they do now, why didn't they before? If there's any other answer besides the state of our food.
Yes. And it's a combination.
Okay.
They didn't necessarily before. Okay, so there are different types of essential fatty acids. There's omega-3s, 6, and 9. Now, 9s can actually be synthesized by the body if you have the 3s and 6s in the right proportion. So 9 is less critical if we're better about the others.
Okay.
As a result of our food and the way we eat and what we eat, today we are way out of whack in that proportion.
Okay.
Essentially, we want the ratio of 3s and 6s to be between 1-to-1 and 4-to-1.
To each other or to the 9?
3s to 6s.
Okay.
Or sorry, 6s to 3s as this is written. So
okay.
1-to-1 to 4-to-1. Most people today have a ratio of between 10-to-1 and 25-to-1. So then, now think about it. A lot of people go choose an omega, and on the bottle it's like omega 3s and 6s and 9s, and you're like, great, more is more. No, more is not more, because if we're supplementing with both, we either haven't changed the ratio, we've just brought both numbers up.
Right. Okay.
Or we're not doing enough to balance that ratio to where it's supposed to be.
Okay.
So it's a long-winded way of saying yes to your question.
Right.
There's more to it. It is our food choices. It is, what's happened and a function of how we eat now.
Right.
And all of these foods. So let's talk about this for a second in a little more detail. Omega-3s are linoleic acid, seafood, flaxseed, right? Fish oil, we know. 6s are the linoleic acid in sunflower and safflower oil. There are cardiovascular benefits when in the correct ratio to omega-3s. Omega-9s are oleic acid, and they're also necessary but not essential because our body is capable of producing small amounts as long as the essential fatty acids are there. Okay.
Are there adverse effects? Like, are there adverse cardiac effects if you're getting way too much or?
Well, I don't know for a fact, but I would venture to say that we have a dramatic rise in cardiovascular disease alongside this dramatic rise in disproportionate ratios.
Right.
So I can't imagine that it's not connected, but I couldn't necessarily say, yes, this is the study,
right,
that points it out. So essential fatty acids play an important role in that in the body, which regulates heart rate, blood pressure, blood clotting, fertility, conception, immune function, inflammation, immune function. Basically, a deficiency in essential fatty acids is super common in the US because our proportion is so off. So omega-3s are often destroyed by heat. So you don't want to cook your omega-3s. Using flax seeds, hemp seeds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, Brazil nuts, sesame seeds, avocados, right? A lot of our dark leafy greens. And of course, everybody knows like salmon, sardines, anchovies, right? Those are great sources. I will say you need to make sure in the studies, the only omega-3s that have been linked to improving cardiovascular health are DHA and EPA.
Okay.
So flaxseed is not DHA or EPA. So there are omega-3s like walnuts and a lot of your nuts and avocado and flax and hemp and all things. They're great and they provide sources of this stuff. but they are not necessarily in the studies improving cardiovascular health. So those are the ones that are going to be great for your brain and your skin and your nails and all of those things.
But you're saying they're destroyed by heat also.
Right, so you don't want to cook them.
Right, so if you're eating it in a bar or something that's cooked, they don't even necessarily have the nutritional benefits you think they might.
Right. So a lot of people take a fish oil supplement, and we mentioned this before about, like 3, 6, and 9 on the bottle. And, there's just a lot of confusion. So I'm just going to be very cut and dry. The therapeutic dosage is 3 grams or 3,000 milligrams of DHA and EPA. If you're maintaining good health, you want that once a day. If you're fighting something or you're trying to improve a condition with omega-3s, whether that's a cognitive condition or a cardiovascular condition, they would generally recommend twice that. So 3,000 milligrams or 3 grams 2 times a day. And that needs to be DHA and EPA according to the studies.
Okay.
So look at the label of your omega-3 and see. I was at a client's the other day. This was a couple weeks ago. She had, it was a giant cupboard full of supplements. We looked at her fish oil. First, it was made from salmon, not my favorite. So the higher up on the food chain, the more likely the risk of mercury poisoning. So you want your fish oil to be made with like sardines and anchovies.
Right.
Okay. Deep sea, low on the food chain fish. So hers was made with salmon. And with the amount of DHA and EPA that was in one serving, she needed to take 10 servings a day to get a single proper dose.
Right.
So the bottle that said 30 servings would actually last her 3 days at the proper therapeutic dosage.
Yikes. Okay.
So here we go. Our members will get this week my recommended omega-3, which gives you the full 3 grams in a single dose. And of course, as a member, you get 15% off. And you'll get that 15% off whether you buy the 30 serving size or the 60 serving size. And of course, our members also get a recipe. Now, this week, I'm actually sending you 2 recipes. And they're salad dressings. Because I think a lot of times when people focus on cutting fat from their nutrition, salad dressings are great, are one of those places where people turn to, right? 2 things happen. 1, we choose the salad dressing from the store that's full of sugar or other chemicals or some laboratory made thing that tastes like the salad dressing you want it to be. Mm-hmm. Or 2, they just go with oil and vinegar and like that gets old.
Yeah.
Right? So our members this week are getting 2 salad dressings. One is it's citrus vinaigrette. You can also use it as a marinade, just delicious. And the other, which I know is not necessarily for everybody, but it's a blue cheese dressing. And so it gives you a healthier option for a creamier salad dressing that you can make and have around. And you guys, you want these salad dressings. And of course, this pharmaceutical grade omega-3. So I'm going to remind you all about our Salad with the Side of Fries membership program. If you're not already on board, you're seriously missing out. It's time. So go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries to get in on this. Everybody will still get the podcast totally free. This allows you to double down on what you're already loving from us for just $10 a month. It's a weekly recipe, although this time 2. Monthly, there's an article diving into topics we're not necessarily covering on the show. Extra discounts from me like today on the omega-3. And of course, you get exclusive access to live sessions with me to answer your questions. To join the fun, go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. It takes 3 clicks and you're in. So I mentioned this, but I'm going to say it again because I think sometimes we just need to hear things more than once. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we feel like we're trying to do so much already. Like we're listening into this show. We're doing what we can do. We're trying to follow a plan. And it's like, do I really need one more thing? This isn't designed to be one more thing. This is designed to support the efforts that you're already making and give you added tools for your tool belt. It's super accessible. It's amping up the resources you have at your disposal. And I have to tell you, in my experience, that's a really smart thing to do. So join us. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. Okay. Fat and how it impacts the glycemic index of foods.
Okay.
Okay. And we talked about this a little bit in part 2 as well. But fat can lower the glycemic impact because it takes longer for our body to break it down and absorb it. So for example, chocolate cake is technically low glycemic impact, but super high in sugar and not a healthy choice.
Right.
Right? But fat in the diet is not the enemy. We need fat every day. It, of course, makes food taste better. It keeps us full longer. And we just want to be smart about the fats that we eat.
Okay. So avocado toast.
Yeah.
Because of the fat, right? And if you have it on, like a multi-grain, right? Or a bread that's a good choice.
Yeah.
That's why you're feeling full for a significant period of time.
Sure.
Okay.
And then you think, add an egg to that, and now you're getting some more protein, right? And there's a little protein in the avocado as well. But so, especially if it's like the Mestemaker German real whole grain bread, that also has some protein.
Right.
Right. And the fat and the protein help blunt the glycemic impact of the higher glycemic grain. And so as we look at the meal as a whole, right. It lowers the glycemic impact of the food.
Yep.
So again, it's why this sort of goes back to part 2 also, but it's why like the fat-free foods that have all that added sugar are worse for you than if you had something that had the fat to slow down the release of the sugar in our system.
Right. But the way you just explained the avocado toast is sort of the simplest explanation for a homemade balanced meal, right?
Yeah.
Not a store-bought, like a balanced meal. Why you're having a little bit of everything, because your body's reaction to it is the most I don't know the word, right? The ideal reaction from your body.
Right. Remembering protein and fiber at every meal. Make sure moving fat, no big deal.
This is like my favorite thing ever that you say.
Right. And protein, fat, and fiber slow down the release of higher glycemic things into our bloodstream.
Right.
So again, it goes back to why we would want dessert with the rest of our meal versus an hour later.
Right.
Because then it's that sugar is being processed with the protein, fat, and fiber.
Right. It lowers the average. That's why I'm going to remember it now.
Exactly. All right. Moral of the story for today. Fat's not the enemy.
Right.
Right? We need fat. We just want to choose the right fat.
That's not true. Trans fat is the enemy.
Yes.
All other fats are not the enemy.
Is the enemy.
Right.
Well said. All right. We're here. Nutrition nugget time.
We need to get you a sound effect.
I'm going to get a sound effect. I'm going to work on this. All right. So today we're talking protein.
Okay.
One of the questions people ask all the time is, how much protein am I supposed to eat? Right? I can tell you, actually, most of my clients, when they first come to me, are not eating enough. And truthfully, yes, everyone is different. And requirements can increase depending on your sex or your physical activity regimen. Not having sex. I mean, your sex.
I got it. Your gender.
Yeah. But gender these days is such a touchy word. Anyway, I digress. Okay. So in a study published in Nutrition and Metabolism, people who increase their protein intake to 30% of their daily total diet.
That is a lot.
Lost about 11 pounds or 5 kilograms over the 12-week study without employing any other dietary measures. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, in my mind, to rationalize this, it's logical to me. If we increase our protein, we're likely not eating as much of the higher glycemic impact foods that we can lean on to feel satisfied. And often when we crave sugar, what our body really needs is protein. So it tracks in my mind that when people in the study increased their protein, it had a side effect of probably reducing sugar cravings and probably sugar intake. Again, a lot of correlated things create that actual reduction in weight.
There was a greater domino effect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we're all served by increasing our protein, but I do know that a lot of you guys out there want to be precise and you want to know. So here's one method for calculating the right amount of protein. All right, you ready? You might want a pen and paper. You might want a calculator, but here we go. You're going to take your weight in kilograms. So if your weight's in pounds, divide it by 2.2 to get your weight in kilograms.
Or ask Siri.
Right, or ask Siri. Thank you. Take your weight in kilograms and multiply it by 1.3. If you're extremely active, you could multiply it by 2. So, as an example, let's say you weigh 180 pounds. That's 82 kilograms. It would then, with the calculation, be 106. So it's saying you would need about 106 grams of protein per day. Now,
that seems like a tremendous amount.
But let's go back grams to ounces for a second.
Oh, right. Okay.
To rationalize it. Okay. Do you remember what it was, grams to ounces?
No.
So it's 7 grams of protein to 1 ounce.
Okay.
So 106 grams is between 15 and 16 ounces of protein.
Okay.
In a full day.
It seems less overwhelming.
Less overwhelming, more logical and reasonable.
Yeah.
So remember from our reading labels episode, right? 7 grams is 1 ounce. As we're reading our labels, we can see it's not so crazy to get to 106 grams or 15 to 16 ounces per day. Now, also recall, our rule of thumb for men is 6 to 8 ounces of protein at a meal. Mm-hmm. For women, 4 to 6 ounces at meals. And then everybody's snacks are about 2 to 3 ounces of protein. So you can see if you calculate that out, 3 meals and maybe a snack or 2, you'd be right at your target of 106 grams. So when in doubt, if you're following our guidelines, you're going to be right on track and you don't have to go crazy and you don't have to do the calculations. I promise you I'm pointing you in the right direction.
Right.
But also, when in doubt, add a little bit more protein. Because as I said, most people do not get enough. And additional protein can help curb sugar cravings and, you know, help us feel satisfied and not necessarily lean on those bulky foods that lack nutrition.
Right. I was going to say, it sounds like integrating more protein might even have benefits you're not necessarily looking for, but sort of, are an unexpected positive outcome.
1,000%. And of course, you need protein to build muscle, right? Muscle is protein. Think about what we eat for those who eat animal protein. What we eat of other animals is their muscle.
Right.
So it all tracks, right? And of course, remember, protein and fiber at every meal makes removing fat no big deal. Protein is clean, lean protein. When in doubt, add more. Fiber is vegetables and sometimes fruit. And a meal is really every time you eat meals or snacks. But protein and fiber at every meal makes removing fat no big deal.
Greatest thing ever.
Right? All right, guys, for more nutrition nuggets, keep tuning in. If you have questions or are curious about anything in your own health plan, reach out to us. You can do so on our website, asaladwithasideoffries.com, or on social media. Tag us, message us. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck, at JENNTREPECK. Our Facebook page is also under the same handle, and our Facebook group is at Salad with a Side of Fries podcast. If you're not already a member, join the Salad with a Side of Fries menu. Join Salad with a Side of Fries membership program so that you can get this week's recipes, the citrus vinaigrette, the blue cheese dressing, plus 15% off our pharmaceutical grade omega-3. And we'll see you next week, right? Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.